Africa doesn't need technology. They need mechanization, because I don't want people to, try to put the cart before the horse. You got a lot of people who, strain at a gnat and swallow a camel. So, they want to skip. It seems like people want to skip industrialization and go straight to advanced technology. And, how is it that we're going to jump straight to mobile apps that aggregate information and data, but we still don't even have the ability to process food here? What's going on, y'all? What's up? This is Adrian, the expat. Today I want to talk about economics, and not in general, specifically the number one problem that most of the countries, if not all of the countries in Africa, except for 2 or 3, is facing, and the effects of it, and then what type of environment it creates, which allows basically for exploitation from other nations. And I'm going to go into a series of videos basically going into this concept, because now that I'm getting into the business here and I'm talking to these investors, I'm finding myself having a lot of the same conversations over and over. So I want to kind of get these ideas out. And 2, a lot of people not really buying the course that I have, just because maybe they think I don't know what I'm talking about, or I'm not promoting it like that. But a lot of the stuff that I said in the course, I find myself just repeating over and over in private conversations. So I'm gonna drop a lot of the information that's in the course, a lot of the ideas and concepts, especially stuff that's relevant specifically to my experience in Africa and to trying to get investors to get involved with our gold mining operation. I think I'm gonna just go ahead and speak on these things freely in public, so you guys can really understand what the issues on the ground are across the continent, and can have a better idea of what to expect and the terrain of the environment if you're trying to do business yourself in another area. So the number one issue. Now, the symptoms, before I say what the issue is, the symptoms are, I got this small list if y'all let me read it. The symptoms are: 1, poor infrastructure; 2, unemployment; 3, poor standard of living and malnutrition; 4, mismanagement of agricultural resources; 5, slow growth of the industrial sector; 6, orthodoxy. So in so many words, I've actually complained about all of these things, or mentioned that particularly Tanzania, but also the rest of these African countries, are missing or lacking in these components. And there is one solution, there is one topic or one idea that needs to be implemented or addressed in order really to solve these problems. And the word is industrialization. Industrialization is absolutely, beyond a shadow of a doubt, the solution to the 6 problems that I just mentioned. Okay, so what is industrialization? Well, I'm gonna give you the textbook definition of it. Industrialization is the process by which an economy is transformed from a primarily agricultural one to one based on the manufacturing of goods. Let me say it again. It's the transformation of an economy from being primarily agricultural to one that primarily manufactures goods. So this is not the video for this, but in my course I taught you about supply chain, and I showed you how products go from raw materials to end products and every step in between, and how basically Africa, as it stands now, the countries in Africa is by no fault of their own. It's not by the design of African countries to remain underdeveloped or unindustrialized. This is actually by the design of outside forces. But the issue is, as it stands, is that most of these countries are simply producers of raw materials. And then they lack the infrastructure, they lack the mechanization in order to turn their agricultural and their mining, their natural resources into products. They don't have factories. So I'm going to just give a few examples of how industrialization can solve these problems or can address these problems. And then I'm going to go into the benefits of Africa not industrializing and who reaps those benefits. One, poor infrastructure. I'm gonna come back to that one because the infrastructure is kind of a thing that kind of just develops as the rest of it is developing to facilitate industrialization. Two, unemployment. So again, think about it like this. And I don't have the stats on it. I'm gonna do a few videos later with just stats and facts, but right now I'm just trying to give you the ideas. Unemployment. So the biggest thing that people do in Africa is agriculture. Like, I don't know how everybody in the West got this idea that Africans are starving when there's food everywhere. Like, literally, if you just look behind me, you could probably see about 5 coconut trees in the back. Like, just, okay, maybe 10. Like, all of these trees right here are coconut trees with coconuts on them. This one right here in the front, that's a banana tree right there. There's 2 banana trees right there with fruit on all of it. There's not a shortage of food. You can't look anywhere without food falling off a tree somewhere, right? But remember, industrialization is transforming your economy from one that's primarily agricultural to one that is manufacturing. So here, everything is agricultural. People just have raw materials, just have tomatoes, bananas, coconuts, and they just sit on the side of the road and they sell raw produce. But when you go into the grocery store, there's not enough products made from those bananas, made from those pineapples, made from the grain, made from the okra, made from everything produced here. There's not enough products made from the raw materials here by the people in this country. So the only people who seem to have the factories, the machines, the know-how, the skill, the labor, and there's no shortage of labor here. The only people who have the factories, though, apparently are not in this country or in these countries where the raw materials are produced. What I'm saying is this is by design. Follow the channel, and I'm going to give you some facts in the next few videos within the series so that you don't think this is some conspiracy theory, but you can see the exact organizations and companies that benefit from African countries strictly being producers of raw materials. That is how it is by design. Right? So let's say that we had factories, or let's say that somebody took their money, because the factory don't just pop up. Somebody with money or a group of people with money has to invest and build a factory, or invest and buy some machines and bring them to these countries and teach people how to use them and begin to process the coconuts and turn it into coconut milk and coconut flour and coconut oil. And then hire a marketing company or buy printers and packaging and actually package the coconut products into bottles and plastic packaging and print labels and barcodes, and then build distribution channels or hire a distribution company to go and sell and distribute your products, right? What I'm describing here is supply chain development. And that's what's lacking. Supply chain is just a component of industrialization. So basically what I'm teaching you guys is economics, right? But from the frame of Africa in its current state. Because if you try to study industrialization, you're going to keep running into British industrialization, American Revolution. They're going to give you these historical examples of how the Western countries industrialized, but it's very hard to find information on what should a country currently underdeveloped do to become industrialized, because they don't really want you to think like that. They don't want you to, they want it just to remain as this hypothetical historical event that took place for the United States and for Great Britain and Europe. But we as Black Americans and people who are part of the diaspora and Africans on the continent who live here in different African countries, who we see we're so used to the benefits of industrialization. Then we come here and all of the things we expect are gone. The standards of living that we grew up with, that we were born with, now have to be built from the ground up. And, you know, this is for us as, you know, people from the West, or people from people here in Africa who traveled west and then come back and they get used to the amenities of industrialization. So I want to teach you guys, especially people who've never left the country, but some for whatever reason watch my videos. If you've never been outside of Tanzania or Kenya or wherever you're from and you're watching my videos, what you got to understand is about why people like myself, because I don't have a problem sharing the truth and my honest opinion and experience, because I'm not going to sugarcoat anything or mislead anybody. You know, I don't want to romanticize anything. The fact of the matter is, this place is underdeveloped and it has not gone through its industrial revolution. And I'm here to encourage and to try to be a front runner and to like help pioneer that industrial revolution for Africa. So number 3, poor standard of living and malnutrition. Just, you know, it's a poor standard of living, whether you used to it or not. And don't take offense to it if you're from here. You just haven't been exposed to anything other than this. But the reason why the maternal and the maternal birth rate, what is it called? The maternal mortality rate. The maternal mortality rate and the infant mortality rate is higher in Africa than it is anywhere else. The infrastructure just isn't there, you know. So we talking about 300 out of, I think, 10,000 or 300 out of 100,000 women or babies die at birth, something like that. I forgot the stat. I'll get it. Don't quote me on my stats in this video. Right now, I just want to bring the ideas out. So poor standard of living and malnutrition. So when people like my mother come out here, or myself, or other people with, especially wives and children, you know, especially, you know, we used to taking care of our women, and our women used to having certain standards. The men can somehow, you know, we could thug it out. Like we could like just kind of rough it out a little bit and just deal with it sometimes, some of the stuff. But, you know, women, we don't really expect them to have to deal with a subpar standard of living than what they used to, because that breaks up families. So I've seen it to where people come out here as a family and it breaks the family up because one person is used to a standard of living, the other person is okay with adapting to the new thing. But if you can't accommodate that entire family, you're going to break up the family. So this is an issue that really, if they just solve the problem here, then that type of thing wouldn't be so divisive. Man, let me turn the camera a little bit, y'all. I think it's a little dark. It's a little dark. Get up on this thing. All right, so mismanagement of agricultural resources. This one, you can see, like, you may not be on the farm, but you can see it yourself in your own way. Like, for example, when I go to the markets out here, I talk about this all the time. The people here are so used to malnutrition produce, and they so used to like how can I explain it? Scarcity mentality is the best way to describe it. These people, for example, onions, they'll grow a field full of onions this big. The onion will be this big, right? Can you see that? I mean, it's that big. Now, from where we from, onions are as big as your hand. A small onion can fit in the palm of your hand like this, but a big onion is like you won't close your hand around it. And what we'll do is we'll chop that onion up and we'll freeze half of it, or we'll chop it in bits and freeze the whole thing, or wrap it in foil paper or plastic or whatever. But here, they harvesting onions this big. So here's the issue with that. It's mismanagement of agricultural resources, because it's a number of reasons why they're doing it. One, the soil is not fit to grow the particular thing that they're growing. 2, they're not rotating crops. 3, a lot of times they harvesting way too early because they greedy for gain, or they need the money. And what happens is they create this agricultural culture of underdeveloped produce. So then this produce is not fit for the international market. They can't really export it and get the most money that they could for it and contribute to the GDP. So what happens is they just get used to subpar produce amongst themselves, you know, here in the country. And that's no good. All right, y'all, so my bad if the video just jumped. It's because I had to make an adjustment. Plus, I took the goat that I had at the other guys and I brought him home. So the goat's down here eating the potted plants. I don't know if y'all can see him back there. I don't know why he won't eat the food we giving him in the back, but he somehow got out the gate, and now he's eating all of the plants that's in the pots instead of the food that we got him in the back. He done ate all the leaves off the banana tree, so I don't know what I'm gonna do with this goat, y'all, because it's taking me some time to find some land. All right, so what I was saying was the produce, right? So for whatever reason, the onions and many other things, but just as an example, the onions are so small, and they taking them out to sell them, and you know, they look at me when I come to the market, and I'm like, this onion is so small. By the time I take the skin off of it and chop it, it's not even an onion, and I done paid for it. It's not. There's no value here. So what they want to do is they would prefer to sell you a whole bucket of 75% of something that you can't use, that you probably won't even use, that's going to take so much work to even try to cut something so small, right? And they look at me silly like I'm crazy when I come and I say, okay, out of this whole bucket, I just want 2. And then I'm going to go to the next stand and take his best 2. And I'm going to go to the next stand and take his best 2. And they look at me like I'm crazy. Like, why does he taking only certain ones? And it's, to me, it's like, how can you not, how do you not understand why? Like, how can you not, how is it not common sense why I'm only taking certain ones? So, really what people need to do is they need to influence, and they need to change the agricultural supply chain. And what that means is, for one day or for one transaction, you might not be able to get what you want to get. For one, that might mean for one day or for one transaction, you might have to pass when they come out with the produce, and you say, know what? I don't want these onions. I don't want these tomatoes, or I'll take this, but I don't want the rest of them. They not, my customers won't like it. You need to develop some type of unique selling proposition. Everybody's sitting down selling the same onions, a bucket of small onions. When you become that one person who focus on sourcing, right? That's really what it's called, sourcing. Then that's how you could create a competitive advantage. But when you have scarcity and scarcity mentality driving the supply chain and the supply and the production of goods, this is why all of the natural resources in the area are very, very subpar and not fit for exportation. The people are thinking with such scarcity and are thinking with such greed that they don't allow the produce to reach its full potential before they harvest it and try to sell it, and then most of it just goes bad. Instead of letting it sit and letting it grow, and then you don't have to just sell it for dirt cheap in these markets. You can sell it on the international market. That's mismanagement of agricultural resources. Just one small example. Slow growth of industrial sector. It's like the chicken or the egg. Which one came first? It's like slow growth of the industrial sector. So this is only a problem in the in Africa, and I'm going to get into why. But the technology in the world is not lacking. There's advanced computer technology to where even if we're not using the absolute most advanced state-of-the-art technology, Africa should at least be able to mechanize, right? Even if it was just analog machinery, they should be able to at least mechanize with just standard machinery. But for whatever reason, that's not even happening at a pace that makes sense compared to the fact that Vietnam, East Asia, West Asia, Mexico, South America, Central America, all of these other emerging markets are developing, but somehow all of the countries in Africa are still unable to even mechanize, let alone industrialized via advanced machinery and technology. We're not talking about advanced technology, and everybody keep using this word technology. And I'm gonna get into this in later videos when we get into like specifics on industrialization. We don't need to. Africa doesn't need technology. They need mechanization, because I don't want people to, try to put the cart before the horse. You got a lot of people who, strain at a gnat and swallow a camel. So they want to skip. It seems like people want to skip industrialization and go straight to advanced technology. And like how is it that we're gonna jump straight to mobile apps that aggregate information and data, but we still don't even have the ability to process food here? That's a big deal. So the investment, the dollars, it doesn't make sense that you have these hedge funds and these VC funds looking for technology. Everybody's looking for technology. But when you have this place, doesn't need technology. You can't throw another $100 million at an app. Here, this place is not ready for that. This place needs regular mechanization. Just regular ability to throw a chicken in the barrel and it come out without feathers in 5 seconds. Instead of, I see these women sitting down, spending 2 hours to pluck a chicken. That's ridiculous. When I was in Egypt, and I know a lot of y'all hate to hear this, I would go to the chicken market. He'll take a live chicken. He'll cut his neck. He'll throw him in the machine. 5 seconds later, the chicken come out just like it was in the store. Not one feather on it, clean. He rinse it off. He chop it in whatever pieces I want, and he wrap it up and give it to me fresh. It took him 10 seconds to do the whole process. But out here, it'll take one person, hours to pluck a chicken just so they can eat for that night. Right? Or, and then chicken is so expensive even though it's so abundant. Like I can hear chickens right now just running around. Like you can't go down this street in my house to the main road without 10 chickens crossing the road. But for whatever reason, there's no ability to like process chickens in like a few seconds like everybody else. When a literal $200 machine, not technology, just mechanization, just a little $200 machine can get that done in seconds, and we can create an entire industry. That's industrialization at a small scale, using simple mechanization. So I don't want people to get this idea that, we need hundreds of millions of dollars in advanced technology. We don't need a commercial chicken processing farm. We just need basic machinery. And then you got number 6, orthodoxy. So what happens is after everything being like this for so much time, then you have traditions develop. People get used to it. And then what happens is they begin to reject ideas, new technology, machinery, or even the conversation about, hey, we should change, we should advance, we should do it this way instead of this way. People are so set in their ways, and they start to attach their identity to the lack of industrialization and say, this is the African way. That's how it's done in Tanzania. No, it's not. It's really not. That's how it's done because, and now I'm going to get into poor infrastructure and the unemployment. Well, the unemployment is connected to the fact that there's no factories. Basically, there's no jobs because there's no mass production. Again, turning the raw materials into finished goods and products. So the issue is everybody's spending hard labor just generating raw materials. And this is the same thing for the agriculture. People are physically farming by hand. They digging holes by hand. They're not even using cattle. They they plowing the earth by hand. So they're not using a tractor. They're not using cattle. You're doing anything, using a piece of wood and old piece of iron, and they doing the whole field by hand. Straight manual labor like it was in the slave plantations in the United States. That's what this place is. It's manual slave labor. And who benefits off of it? The Western world, the people who own the factories. They still got slave labor. So this entire continent is being used as slave labor to create and to develop raw material. And then they come here and buy the raw material dirt cheap, take it to their factories in their countries where they provide jobs for people. They can manufacture it in bulk, and then they can export it because they come and only buy the best for dirt cheap in large wholesale quantities. They are able to create products that meets the standards of the international trade market so they can export their goods and increase their GDP. and create jobs and generate tax dollars, and they can turn them tax dollars into free education for their people. Where you have countries like this where they hardly can do any free education. So where half the people here, the poor people, can't even read Swahili, let alone read and speak English. You understand? So I'm showing people they can't count, they don't know math. I'm like, we dealing with people so uneducated after a while, to where it's just like, no wonder this place can't go anywhere. It's gonna take a long time for them to make any progress. So it has to start with mechanization. It has to start with somebody, some group of people, some individual who got a lot of money, bringing their money, or somebody who got a little bit of money, or a whole bunch of people like us in the diaspora who got a little bit of money, who can come and bring 1 or 2 small machines and create a small business that we grow from the ground up, right? And buy a machine, turn that machine, like I had a brother, you know, maybe I'm gonna get him on to do an interview one day, but he came out here in the 70s, and long story short, he bought a peanut butter machine. After coming out here and seeing, he was like, look, I saw how the flies was flying on the meat, and he said, I'm not eating meat. And he said he made him some peanut butter. He bought a peanut butter machine and made some peanut butter, and it turned into a big business where he was mass producing peanut butter just by taking the local peanuts, mixing it with oil, throwing it in the machine, and he started getting some bottles and putting them things in some bottle, you know, jars or whatever. And before you know it, he had a business that was crossing into Kenya and Uganda and all over the place, from what he told me, before it got stolen by a Tanzanian. Now, this honest to God truth, I have him on the channel one day to tell you the story. So, but the idea of just a simple machine, instead of sitting here trying to mix something up by hand, you could spend $100, $200 or $300 on a machine, take the local produce, and then process it and create a product. I got a lot of Americans, because we come from a place so advanced that we only think about how can we move backwards? How can I get on the farm and produce something by hand? And then you got the Africans here who they so stuck in agricultural that they can't think forward. So really everybody needs to meet in the middle and focus on industrialization. Americans need to bring their money to buy, you know, spend $500 to $1,000 on machines and figure out how can I use these machines to take the resources already here and create a product with it. And the people here need to think about how can I create a better quality product fit for exportation, and how can I focus on selling wholesale. Stop nickeling and diming. I'm gonna have to go into that, but if people here would get out of scarcity mentality, get out of this exploitation, this tit for tat, like you exploit me, I'm gonna exploit you type of dynamic, and think about long-term value, lifetime customer value, increasing the price per unit, increasing the quality of your production, you know, because you don't have to harvest 100 onions, you know. The same 100 onions that currently weighs 30 kilos could be the same 100 onions that now weighs 60 kilos just because you waited an extra 2 weeks, because you're not dealing with scarcity mentality. So some of this stuff is just understanding economics, and that's where I'm hoping to try to influence people in a positive way. I want to read the definition. I think I read this already, but industrialization is a process by which an economy is transformed from a primarily agricultural one to one based on the manufacturing of goods. Individual manual labor is often replaced by mechanized mass production. So right now everybody's doing individual manual labor. Eventually, in the ideal scenario, you'll have factories popping up, or a lot of individuals popping up with machinery that they can't work themselves because they need to run the business. So they'll hire 1 or 2 locals to run the machine and produce the products that they actually trying to sell. And so like it says, individual manual labor is often replaced by mechanized mass production. The idea should be mass production. Americans and people from the West and the UK, stop thinking about how can I come out here and take the Africans' jobs. Stop thinking about how can I come work for the companies that exist. No companies exist. You need to create it. And how can I come and become a farmer? You don't need to be a farmer. They are already farmers. Don't come out here thinking, how can I compete with them? You need to think about how can I fit in and fill the needs that they have that I qualify for. That's what you need to think about. So it might be new for you, but if you have $2,000 to fly over here on a plane ticket, you can put an extra $1,000 in buying some kind of machine. And in turning coconuts into coconut oil or coconut milk. or turning pineapples into pineapple juice or pineapple candy. You understand what I'm saying? It's like they have so much stuff here, you can do so much. I had a brother tell me he want to get into concrete. That's cool, but you don't want to get into concrete and then start competing with Tanzanians, selling your Tanzanian concrete to Tanzanians. One, that's a bad business model. You don't even speak Swahili. You're not going to be able to compete with a Tanzanian selling Tanzanian concrete to Tanzanians in Swahili. It's not going to work. Now, if you can somehow add value to the concrete and then export it, now we talking. Or if you could just build relationships and build supply chain with the West, with the unique selling proposition that you have, with the connections that you have, and you can somehow build that supply chain from here to there, now that's a competitive advantage. Now you're not competing with them, but you're still contributing to the GDP of the country. You bringing money from the outside of the country into the country without competing with the locals. But if you just say, look, I'm gonna take the local materials and I'm gonna create products and sell it to the locals, you're not increasing the GDP. The entire point of us as expats is to increase the GDP. If we want to be accepted by the country and we don't want the legislation to change against what we're doing, always think, how can I increase the GDP? That's see people who are looking to exploit, all of their activities directly decreases the GDP. So those models are not sustainable long term on the ground. And this is why, for example, the president of Ghana, he just said no more exporting of raw cocoa. Because what does that do? It decreases the GDP. It's better for a European chocolate manufacturer to come buy raw cocoa and then process it in his chocolate facility and then sell it back to Africans at a 4x markup. That makes sense for them. But for Africa, it takes away. When we need to be the ones, or Ghana needs to be the one to turn that cocoa into chocolate bars and then selling it to Europe. And then taking European money and then bringing it to the Ghana economy. Not taking the Ghana commodity, because remember, commodity is money, it's cash. Don't take the cash and sell it at the base cash level. Add a 4 or 5x markup to it and then sell it. So us as foreigners, as Westerners, not even foreigners, but as diaspora Africans, descendants of slaves, whoever you are, we need to be thinking about, how can I increase the GDP of the country that I'm going to? Stop the exploitation. Do the opposite of what these Western companies are doing. Do the opposite of what these Europeans are doing, these colonizers are doing. Do the opposite of what these Chinese and Arabs and Indians are doing. And that way, the governments of these countries will embrace us long term, because our activities are sustainable, because we're actually filling the need. Anything that I do here in Africa, Tanzania, to begin with Tanzania, is going to benefit Tanzania. I'm already have African or Tanzanian employees. I'm already taking money from the United States and investing it in this country. I've already increased the GDP. And once we get this gold producing out of this gold mine, I don't plan on exporting the gold and taking the money and getting it straight out of the country like the rest of these companies do. All of my profits, because I live here, gonna go back into further industrializing this country. Because why? It raises the standard of living for me. And I'm interested in maintaining or increasing my lifestyle. I don't want to move somewhere and have to live a lower quality of life or experience a lower quality of life. Nobody should have to. Like, the point of technology and advancing is for everybody to live a higher quality of life. And I don't care what nobody say, whether it's pride or orthodoxy or just tradition, people holding on to certain things. When people be honest and candid, everybody like to enjoy a little AC when it's hot. Everybody like to have some internet if it was free, some affordable internet. Everybody would prefer to ride in the car instead of walking or riding the bike. I don't care what nobody tell you. That when you give them the opportunity, watch what choice they pick. You know what I mean? So that's the benefits of industrialization, of having access, creating the middle class, getting rid of this exploitation model, right? So we have to work together. And I'm telling you, the solution is for people like myself, people like the Americans watching me, the people from the UK watching me, the Africans that's watching me that live our lifestyle. Y'all need to put y'all money into your own countries. Y'all really do, because stop being afraid of investing in your own country. You know, stop complaining about your own country but not willing to do nothing about it, and you looking, how can I get a visa to Europe or to France or to the United States? Cut all of that out, because them countries are not for us anyway, you know? So it says characteristics of industrialization include economic growth, the more efficient division of labor, and the use of technological innovation to solve problems as opposed to dependency on conditions outside of human control. Right. So it says the more efficient division of labor. People waste labor here. The power, it's like the fact that they doing certain things by hand. I'm like, man, you are wasting so much time. When I tell you, like, just an investment of $100 or $200 in one tool, like better tools or one simple analog machine would save them literally months of time. Like, it's ridiculous. And I'm just like, I watched Egypt develop in like a matter of less than 10 years. I watched them go from what it was in 2010 to what it is today. And it's amazing the amount of progress that Egyptians have made in a short amount of time, because Arabs don't have a problem investing in Arab countries. The money from Saudi Arabia and Oman and Qatar and Dubai, all of that money went to Egypt to build that place. There was so many unfinished homes and villas in Egypt in the areas we were staying in. I was like, what's up with all of these unfinished buildings? But it made sense, because now I bet those buildings are finished. You understand? So it was like they was investing. I'm like, what's up with this? But it's because they saw the vision 10 years down the road. But here in Africa, nobody's thinking 10 years from now. Nobody's investing for 10 years from now. So I'm trying to build a business now that for where 10 years from now, we're going to be $1 billion corporation. And whether, you know, the potential's here. Now, whether or not we can overcome the propaganda and the fear that the West is going to put out about this place, because they do it with China. The United States is not really concerned about investing in this place. The United States really enjoys putting out negative propaganda to smear China's activities here. But they're not interested in actually doing anything themselves here. And they don't want the private money, the trillions of dollars in private investment capital, to flow into this nation or this continent. So I hope that really speaks to it. I'm going to go into more detail, but the solution to all of the problems is industrialization, but the lack of industrialization creates the perfect environment for colonizers and oppressors to continue to benefit and rape and extort and exploit the countries in Africa. That's why this place is not industrialized. And in the next few videos, I'm going to go into this, to the actual facts. That I'm going to name names. I'm going to call out the organizations that are doing it, the mechanisms by which they do it, how they keep these African countries under their foot, and what we can do about it. This is Adrian the Expat. I'll talk to you later.